This week, I launched my new book, The End of Homosexuality and the Last Gay. And one of the chapters in that book says clearly that I feel more discriminated today in Canada in 2017 as a man than as a gay. And why so? Well, because as a gay, if I'm fired, legally I'm protected. If I'm bashed, I'm protected. There's hate crimes disposal in our criminal code, specifically when it targets gays and lesbians. But as a man, well, it's not that easy. Often we read about all those stories and we see it in our movies, we see it in our advertisement. When you see a guy acting like a cat waiting for his wife and when she arrives, begging her for food, would you imagine seeing such an advertisement with the women doing the opposite? Think about it for 2 seconds and it shows you which kind of image we get day after day after day in the media. We don't even take notice about it because it's so, how could I say, it's so irrelevant nowadays. We're so used to it. The same thing is true also about domestic violence. Think about it. There's a lot of centers, a lot of subsidies for all those centers. If you're a man that is victim of domestic violence, and it does happen a little bit more often than you think, well, try to find a spot if you want and try to find something that is subsidized to help you out. You're going to have a very hard time. And I could go on and on about the list. Think about positive discrimination in the public work. Here currently in Quebec, 58.3% of public employees by the government are women. Why is there only 41.7% of men? Think about education. And education is probably, in my book, the worst thing because that's the future, that's our kids. And when I see that the dropout rate currently in Quebec is 38% for guys compared to 22% of women, I'm really concerned, especially now that we're in a knowledge economy where education is so important. 2 times more dropout for men than for women right now. Worse than that, even when they stick and they go to university, their success rate is different. 92% for women, 81% for men. So even after a lot of guys dropped out, those who are left, they have smaller results and the possibility of success and obtaining their diplomas at the end is lower. I went to a college last year, and one of the most terrifying thing happened to me. I was saying, look, girls, you're doing pretty well in school, and congratulations, but guys, you'll need to work harder because girls are going to kick your ass if you're not pushing a little bit more. And I was talking about all those figures and everything, and suddenly a guy, just looked at me and said very, honestly, he said, look, Eric, I don't know why you're concerned. Because it's just normal. Men, we're stronger. We're done for manual work. While girls, they're smarter. They're more intellectual. So that's normal that their success rate is much higher in schools and in university. How is it in our society, in a class like that, not one single of the 40 other kids around him said that it made no sense? How come they all thought it made a lot of sense to think that men are inferior intellectually to women? Which kind of society have we developed so people have internalized such a wrong story in their mind? And, well, there's a lot of possibilities of why it did happen, actually. And one of the things that happened a few months ago here in Quebec City tells us a lot about why we're at that point. A professor who just retired like a few years ago, he's almost 80 years old now. His name is André Gélina. He founded actually the National School of Public Administration here in Quebec City. And he wanted to give a legacy. He wanted to give money back to a society that has been very generous to him. And he wanted to create a program, a bursary program for kids in university. So he looked at all the programs available and he realized there was 149 programs for women only and there's 0 for men only. And he thought, I'm a man who does believe in equality between men and women, so I'm going to put my money in a program for men only. Initially, Laval University accepted the funds. But after a few months, they realized they had a malaise, an embarrassment, because they didn't want to promote men over women. How come they don't have an embarrassment when it's 149 programs for girls, but it's for guys? Whoops, they have an embarrassment suddenly. And I just want to remind you that women are you know, overwhelmingly well represented at Laval University. Just to give you an example, those who are going to earn the more money probably in a few years in medicine, it's 75% girls, 25% men right now at Laval University. This is what we're talking about. At what percentage will we say enough is enough? And stop discrimination against men, and stop having bursaries for girls only, and have a malaise when it's for a guy only? When are we going to stop subsidizing all those things to promote women and start to promote equality instead? And equality, true equality, is not to repair the past by creating a new equality in favor of women for a few centuries. It's not that. Equality is equality. And I think that when you look at the future, and we're not talking about a century from now, we're talking about a decade maybe, we see that the women will surpass the men in terms of revenue, in terms of education. Certainly, they're already there. So when are we going to stop and say this is an equality society we want, and we need to stop affirmative action, but I call it discrimination pure? This is Eric Duhaime for therebel.media.